Hey everyone, and welcome back. I want to talk about a couple of different things here. Specifically, I want to talk about different typeface scenarios. So let's jump in. This is going to be our number one example here where we have this consultancy. Now, this is something I just came up with, but let's dive in. Now, so for the first example here, this consultancy, they're a group of really passionate individuals that they're trusted in building software for a variety of organizations. I'm sure many people can think of, different examples here. Now let's go back to how we think about typefaces. When I approached this little branding exercise here, I thought about the type of voice the brand had. This brand wants its potential customers to know that they are friendly, approachable, and knowledgeable. And you can see that I have paired two typefaces over here. These are our two typefaces. We have Merriweather, which is a very nice and clean serif font. It almost blurs those lines between serif and sans serif. And if you're really interested in using Merriweather, they also have a sans serif option, which I love that typeface as well. I think it's pretty beautiful. So they do have that sans serif and the serif option. I love both of them, to be honest, but I've used the serif font here. And like I said, it has that sense of trustworthiness and professionalism to it. And that's what we're going for with this. The next typeface that I use over here is Source Sans Pro. This is another typeface. And if we go into this font family and we go to see all the different styles it has, it's pretty extensive itself. And, this is something that I really look for when I'm looking for like UI focused typefaces. Sometimes I'll have a heading specific typeface. Sometimes I'll use just one. Like Source Sans Pro is a good typeface that you can use throughout your entire product. So, don't shy away from that if you really want to. Sometimes I like to create the contrast. It really is dependent on that brand. So this is a really great font family, a clean sans serif that is really great for things like body copy and just labels in general. We even have them up here as the navigation items. Now, if we were to say change like this heading typeface to say, even if we just change it to the sans version of itself, it doesn't necessarily come across as the same version that we had prior. And, we can even say that we want it to be like Helvetica. It's okay. It's not that it's bad or anything, but I actually thought that the Merriweather version was just, it just had a little bit more life to it in terms of the different shapes of all the different elements within the typeface. So personally, that's kind of the direction I went into, and that's why I really loved this font family for this. Now, that's all great for, that's all great for things like products, websites, etc., just software in general and, pairing typefaces. But sometimes when we get into the really nitty gritty details of, how things should work when you're using typefaces with like things like UI, an example being an input where, we have three different instances. We have like a label, we have text, the content within, and then we have this like message. We need to ensure that the font family that we're going to choose to do this is going to be versatile. It's going to have some weights that we can use. It's going to look really great at smaller font sizes. And, those weights are going to help us just make sure that, it's legible, readable at those smaller font sizes. Now, if we look over here, we have like an error message for a form element. When we think about the content of an error message, we need to think about how that should impact our user. An error message should be direct, it should be plain, and it should be straight to the point since we want a user to fix the error. So this is like an actual scenario. Not just the fact that we need people to understand the input, in the sense of like before its error state, but when we have certain scenarios where there's, a user action needs to be done, the typefaces that we choose here are going to really help us, get that point across. They need to be readable and legible. And the other thing is, especially with like an error message, the typeface that we choose really needs to reflect the seriousness of that message. If we were to think of this as a real life interaction, if you had an issue with an online purchase at one of your favorite stores and asked for help, I'm 100% sure they wouldn't respond in a jokingly or an over casual manner. Like they wouldn't be like, hey, what's up, buddy? Hold up, we're going to fix that. They would probably say something along the lines of, hello, sorry to see you are having an issue. Let me fix that for you. And a typeface can really help reinforce that type of messaging. Like the example prior, let's contrast that with another typeface that's a bit more fun. We can see that there really isn't a sense of seriousness if we do that. So if we grab something that's a little bit more, funky, Gill Sans is a little bit more funkier, and it's not that it's bad or anything. This is actually, it can pass, but now we're starting to get into issues of like, okay, this is a little bit harder to read now. And if we, go off the board and, do something like not Comic Sans, that's just a little too much. Let's see what we can find here. There is Comic Sans as an option just to show the total contrast. But you can see over here, like you wouldn't pick a font family like this to display that. There's a lot of different options out there. The other thing is, you wouldn't even pick a typeface that's just way too like contrasting even if in its own right. This is, Garamond. We also have things like Bodoni, which is lots of thick and thins over here, hard to read. Kind of just doesn't suit this scenario at all. And then if you want to really go that route of like seeing, Comic Sans, like that just looks, playful. And that's not what we're going for here. We can see that this really isn't helping us with showing like a sense of seriousness here. And it doesn't look like the type of response I would get from a serious establishment. Typefaces really possess an emotion or a mood. And by using this type of methodology, you now will be able to distinguish the type of impact a typeface can have on the perception of a brand.